Hey there, welcome to The Hash. You're watching CoinDesk TV with me, Zach Seward, David Morris, Sandli Handagama, and Jen Sanasi. We are here to do this thing and to do it well. We're going to start with Sandli. Sandli, take it away with some big news out of Ukraine.
Yes, thank you, Zach. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has legalized crypto, according to an official statement from the country's Ministry of Digital Transformation yesterday. The law determines a lot of things, from the legal status and classification of crypto assets to who will be regulating these assets in the country. It also sets up registration requirements for crypto firms. This is big news, but not exactly surprising given what we have seen in the last few weeks. Ukraine is currently at war with Russia, and since the Russian invasion began on February 24th, Ukraine has raised close to $100 million in crypto, according to an official from the Ministry of Digital Transformation, which is the ministry kind of running the crypto effort for the government. Several people involved in crypto fundraising for the government have said that crypto has proven to be faster and somewhat easier to use than traditional payment methods at this time in buying a variety of critical but non-lethal supplies, from food to bulletproof vests and night vision goggles, we have been told. And crypto donations have been rolling into multiple funds set up by the government, various charities, and DAOs. But it's important to consider that Ukraine, before the war, was considered to be quite crypto-friendly and innovation-friendly. And it's important to remember that this bill is not something that was kind of put together in a rush in a short time, like we kind of saw in El Salvador. This bill has been over a year in the making. A version of it was actually rejected by the president last October, so that changes could be made to what agencies would regulate this space. So, given the role that crypto has played in the last few weeks, the move to legalize it may have been a bit accelerated, but it didn't come from nowhere or because of what has come to pass. I think that's key in this case. And those are my thoughts on that. I'm wondering what you think, David, because you've been writing some beautiful pieces on crypto and Ukraine. So I'll hand it over to you first.
Oh, thanks. Sandali, nice to be on the screen with you together for the first time.
Yes.
I mean, I think that there is one important clarification, just because the word can mean different things. But in this case, we should clarify that when our headline says legalizing, that doesn't mean that it was previously illegal, just that there was less of a formal and multidimensional legal framework. And so that's important to keep in mind. I mean, I think that this is interesting because of the status of the war. But we are going to see more and more of these things for countries that still need to clarify regulations. And so, I mean, I think that you're correct that it is news, but it's not going to be, this kind of thing is not going to be news for that much longer. Every country needs to have a regulatory regime for crypto, unless they're going to be one of the ones trying to keep it out of their borders for whatever reason. So, this is just the, I guess we're onboarding, however many million customers, and it's the process that is going to continue happening. But also, yeah, absolutely power to Ukraine. And they're going to be able to take advantage of this for however much longer they're dealing with the situation that they're in. So that's definitely a plus. I thought I saw Jen throw up a hand.
Yeah, when I was reading the story, I was thinking, we talk so much about seeing individual citizens who are experiencing the ultimate use case for crypto when it comes to the sanctions and restrictions that we're seeing kind of happen all over the world at an accelerated pace. In this case, we're seeing a government in a desperate situation who has really been able to experience the benefits of crypto. They've raised $100 million in crypto for humanitarian relief and defense. And I think we're seeing what we've seen with individuals who've adopted crypto at an accelerated pace happen on a government level. And so it's really interesting, Sandali, like you said, this has been something that's been in the works for a long time, but I'm interested to see how this plays out, how banks respond, how regulators respond, and if other nations can look to Ukraine to see a model that works when it comes to regulating and legalizing crypto. This is definitely not, I think, the most important news story coming out of Ukraine. There are still a lot of lives being lost, but it's definitely a really important crypto story. And so I look forward to see how it plays out and if other nations can learn a thing or two from how this rolls out and how all the different parties work together.
And just to highlight, I guess, one of the complexities of that situation in the Ukraine, not that to take anything away from this news or the general positivity of the impact there, but one of the wrinkles is that there are, many different factions operating within Ukraine, and as the war progresses, clarity gets harder and harder to find. I guess maybe I won't go into too much detail here, but just to say that there are forces within Ukraine that may be opposed to Russia, but are not necessarily aligned with what donors might want to support. So one of the complexities of this in general is, once you're talking to somebody in Ukraine, who exactly is that? How do you figure it out? From a donor support perspective. And that is always one of the problems with crypto, is knowing who you're actually talking to or dealing with. And that's going to become even more complicated under wartime. So I guess maybe just a heads up to everybody making donations to be careful and vet yourself. I believe Jen has our next story.
I do. And we are sticking with the regulatory theme for the first half of the show. So 8 Congress members have asked the SEC for details on crypto company investigations. The bipartisan group, led by Tom Emmer, says burdensome reporting requirements are stifling American innovation. The members said they have reasons to believe that requests could be at odds with the Paperwork Reduction Act, noting that federal agencies must be good stewards of the public's time and not overwhelm them with unnecessary or duplicative requests for information. So I think that we've all seen industry executives, crypto founders come out and just really voice their frustrations with SEC processes. We've seen that happen in public on social media, and I think many of us have had conversations in private with some of these people who are frustrated by the SEC's reporting requirements. Now we have these Congress members who are asking to see how the requirements actually function. And I just wonder if the SEC will respond. So, David, I'm going to kick it off to you. What did you take away from this?
I mean, I would start off by just pointing out that this may be less significant in terms of what it says about the SEC than in what it says about an emerging politicization of crypto in general in the U.S. Congress. This is, probably as much as anything, a signal by signatories to this letter that they are supporters of crypto and are pro crypto. I have to admit I did not read the entire letter, so I can't necessarily offer my own opinion about whether the SEC's inquiries are burdensome in the terms that they've put it. I do remember back probably maybe 8 or 9 months ago, Coinbase particularly took objection to some of the ways that the SEC was demanding information from them or refusing to engage with them alternately. So there has definitely been signaling from companies that this is a problem. These are Congress people who want to make sure that Bitcoiners are looking to them for their votes. But also, and this is really important, we do have increasing amounts of money going into lobbying in Washington on behalf of crypto companies and crypto more broadly through entities like the Blockchain Association or Coin Center. So they're also keeping an eye on the possibility of campaign donations. Not to be totally cynical, maybe there is really something here that the SEC needs to maybe take a step back. That pressure is certainly not unwelcome. But I would focus more on the politics here than the regulatory side. Zach, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just think the acceleration of crypto lobbying in DC has just been a really super duper interesting story over these last 6 months. I think it's really picked up steam. And I think what we're seeing is, some of these behind the scenes efforts coming to fruition in these, these public announcements, right? These procedural steps, these policy steps, these regulatory battles that we see playing out on Capitol Hill with more and more regularity. So I think, some of the money has started to pour into some lobbying efforts in DC. And I think this is sort of, again, the fruits of that coming to bear. So whether or not this moves into anything that's meaningful or actionable is to be determined. We just saw the executive order come out, which is sort of like, hey, we got to get our house in order. So that was also another major signal. But sort of, I think the lobbying story is going to be really interesting in DC as it relates to the crypto industry going forward. We even saw a little blip today that the Blockchain Association, which is one of the bigger lobbying groups, is setting up shop in Albany, New York, to make sure that state level advocacy is occurring in New York, specifically in this instance. So going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. And I know, Sondley, I'm going to toss it to you because you do a lot of work on the regulatory side. Like, what are you hearing on that end based on your reporting and that of others in the newsroom?
Thank you. Yes. So I just wanted to kind of echo what David said. I joined CoinDesk in 2020, and I have covered a lot of letters from Representative Emmer. He's the king of letters questioning regulatory measures, and it has only gotten stronger as the crypto lobby has gotten stronger and bigger. So I don't know. I think that it's interesting that they have a system in the US where lawmakers can actually write these open letters and question what regulators are doing on behalf of businesses. But, we also have to be careful. They are speaking, like you said, trying to get votes and support from a specific target constituency. So we have to take all of these letters and requests with a grain of a grain of salt, and just wait for actual regulators to kind of address these issues and see how they actually try to change how things work. So I think the executive order is going to be a key in kind of making that change come about. The SEC has been admittedly a bit chaotic in the way it has approached kind of asking all these various crypto firms to tell them what they're doing, and oh, you didn't do anything wrong, but tell us what's up anyway, and it's just confusing. And then recently, I think the SEC enforcement head said crypto firms that self-report will not have amnesty or any excuses, just maybe kind of lesser penalties. So the crypto world is hearing all of this, and they have questions, and it's coming through lawmakers now directly to these regulators. So it's expected, but I'm more interested in what the SEC is actually going to do in the coming year and coming months. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a rant, but.
That was good. Well, that was good.
Yes.
We will leave it there,
Okay.
and we will watch what the SEC does in the coming year. But we got to change gears. We got to go to the break. We got to tease the break. You've heard a lot about the metaverse. It's time that we talked about the MetaMetaverse. There's a new project called MetaMetaverse that just had some news this morning, and we're going to talk about it. So stick with us. We'll see what happens after the break. It's The Hash. Bye.
I think we need a metaverse minute on this show.
I think we need a metaverse minute on this show.
Whoa, I am so high on drugs right now. That was amazing. Control. I love what you did there. That was amazing. Quick work. Wow. Good times. This was, just to get everyone caught up to speed. On yesterday's show, Jen coined the beautiful phrase, the Metaverse Minute. So we're going to do the Metaverse Minute. It's the Metaverse Minute, and in today's Metaverse Minute, we're going to talk about the MetaMetaverse. This is from a guy who is no slouch. This is someone who worked with MetaMask in the early days to get the Ethereum wallet up and running. He was sort of in a years-long crypto retirement, and like Tom Brady, he said, screw it, I want back on the field. And now he's making a thing called MetaMetaverse. Raised about $2 million to get this thing off the ground. It's crazy looking. It's this interoperable metaverse thing represented in cubes, in which other cubes are in the cubes. So if you get a chance, check out this concept. It's striking in a visual capacity, but it's also an interesting comment on sort of a little bit of metaverse fatigue. Trying to add some complexity, add a little spice to this conversation. But I'm going to toss it to David, whose hand is up, and he wants in on the MetaMetaverse.
Yeah, I got a lot to say about this, but I'll try and keep it brief. I think that it's going to be easy to make fun of that name, MetaMetaverse, but there's really good reasons for it, and they are things that make me very angry, which are, the metaverse concept has a lot of different parents. But if somebody who was working on MetaMask back in 2016 or whatever, there was a huge conversation in Ethereum focused not on virtual reality and immersive spaces, but interoperability of blockchain assets, basically NFTs and tokens, and being able to build these landscapes that will, mesh with each other. And then you have Facebook come along and say, like, no, we are building the metaverse, is our metaverse. It's the one that we control. We sell all the stuff inside of it. And now you have to have somebody who was involved in those conversations that actually gave the name Meta the value that Facebook decided to steal when they rebranded. And they're going to build something that is actually interoperable. I mean, if they actually follow through, which seems, this seems like a guy with some cred. So I haven't dug too deep. I love the concept. It does have to be interoperable for it to actually fulfill the vision that got people interested in the first place. And the fact that we have to add another meta is Mark Zuckerberg's fault, just like almost everything else. Joking, but nonetheless, I'm interested in this and very curious and love to see more. I don't know who wants on deck next. Sandali, looked like you might have had something to chime in.
I saw Jen's hand. I'm tossing to Jen.
Oh, yeah. Let's go to Jen.
Okay.
I mean, come on now, Jen. Your hand was up. Come on now.
I was busy talking to pay attention.
Zach, I was going to make the Tom Brady. I was going to make the Tom Brady parallel, and you rugged me.
I did. Classic.
I was like really excited for that.
Though.
I know you didn't. I know. So, I mean, when we talk about metaverses and the metaverse, there's always been this like really big question around interoperability. And so I think that lately when we talk about the metaverse, we've been looking at it kind of with a Web 2 tinge or through a Web 2 lens, Web 2.5, if you will. And this really brings us back to the basics, which is really interesting. And now I've never built a metaverse and I don't really know a lot about it, but I've been in conversations with people who do. And what was really kind of interesting in this article is the ability for users to build on virtual land using several different gaming engines. And this is really huge. I know a lot of people who I've been in conversation with who are building out applications in the metaverse talk about these gaming engines and how restrictive they are in different metaverses and different environments. So I think this potentially could be really big for the metaverse. I agree with you, David. And this is really exciting. What a cool way to bless the Metaverse Minute, our inaugural Metaverse Minute. I'm just excited that we could do that. Sandali?
No, I agree with you, but I have a question. So just a friend asked me the other day, and I wanted to kind of throw it to you guys with this news, especially. If you're getting started in the metaverse, like where do you start and what do you do first? There's so many different versions of this coming up, and this is going to be like the metaverse now. Where does someone start? Jen, maybe you have some thoughts?
I honestly, like I said, I've not ever built in the metaverse, so I don't really know. A lot of the people who I know who are start with, maybe Zach's gonna have a better answer, but start with the actual metaverse that they want to build in. So if it's the sandbox, for example, they start talking to the sandbox team and looking at what is actually possible. Because a lot of the things we talk about in the metaverse are really basic right now. And we're building through those roadmaps to that ultimate, scenario that will be possible in the future. So I would start with the metaverse you would like to build in and then take it from there. But Zach, maybe you have a more succinct answer.
Building is hard. I don't want to build anything. I just want to putz around in the metaverse. So I just go to Decentraland, and you can connect it with your MetaMask wallet. Or there's also, I think there's a version where you don't have to have a MetaMask wallet. And there's sort of this like opening portal that like gives you a little bit of a menu of like what's going on in the world in that particular day, and you can just kind of putz around. Do little things like control your little avatar, dress your little avatar,
to the casino.
Yeah, go gamble. So there's ways to just do it that are relatively like low lift in terms of A, like technical barrier, and B, monetary barrier. But there are other really cool ones too. Like portals on Solana is pretty cool. If you have a Solana wallet, you can go check that out and putz around with your little avatar. I haven't really spent much time in the sandbox, but that's also like another point of entry that we're seeing a lot of sort of corporate adoption around. So yeah, I mean, Jen's point is well taken, but building that's
for building.
Beyond me. That's beyond me. Putzing around though, and like figuring out how to use your laptop to like walk around.
We can all do that.
Is fun. Also, yeah, I mean, also like people have the misconception that you have to have like a VR headset to be in the metaverse, and I think that's sort of a byproduct of some marketing efforts from Facebook. That's not true. You don't have to have a gaming computer, right? You just have your laptop. That's the only time I've ever experienced the metaverse is like on my laptop. Sure, the fans start sounding like a semi truck, but you can walk around and get a feel for what these more immersive online experiences can maybe be one day. But yeah, that's what I'd say. How about you, Sandali? You ever been in the metaverse?
Yes, I have actually, but very for a very short time. But I was told that one of the first jobs in the metaverse is going to be just populating it, so you can just get paid to go stand around and look like there's
That's
people
my kind
there.
of job.
So, yeah, I'm like I can sign up for that.
I can
stand to earn.
Yeah,
that's yeah. It's like
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. It's like the celebrity club walkthrough phenomenon. You guys ever heard about this? They pay people, celebrities, to like appear at a club. We could do that in the metaverse for pennies.
Yeah,
it'd be fantastic. All right, let's change gears. What are we talking about next?
That's going to continue to be a huge thing in the metaverse. I think they're probably already doing it. That's why you have concerts by famous people who have like 5 members of the audience because they're getting paid regardless of who's there to try and draw people in. Anyway, sorry. Let's continue. Oh, I guess I have the next story.
We're changing
so
gears.
I'll just pick
you
it
have
up.
the next story too. Yeah.
Yeah, boy. This is one that I actually wrote. So, this is a small but very important story. If those two things can be true at the same time. Juno is a, not particularly well-known, but not insignificant Cosmos-based blockchain that has, through a really complicated series of events, had to, grapple with the idea of potentially taking back some tokens that it distributed through an airdrop to a quote-unquote whale that controlled a large number of wallets. For those who aren't familiar, an airdrop is usually a reward basically on the way to establishing a new network or an incentive for people to use something new. And in this case, people who had staked Atom, which is Cosmos' native token, I believe, in the pre-launch Juno system, got a bunch of Juno, which is now a token in its own right. And one user, which is, depending on who you ask, either an MLM or an investment fund, had set up quite a few wallets and got all of the airdrops. They were one. There has been a lot of back and forth as to whether they actually deserved those tokens that they got in the airdrop. And then yesterday, after a lot of debate and discussion, there was actually an on-chain vote. And by a relatively narrow margin, Juno users approved drawing down the whale's balance to take back the tokens that they got during the airdrop. And that will actually have to be done through a different process. So it's really just a signaling proposal that passed yesterday. It's still going to be, I think, pretty dicey. But the reason this is so significant, despite the fact that Juno is not a huge network, is just that this is the first time on-chain governance has been used to take away money from a user, basically. Even though they may have violated the spirit and or letter of the airdrop, it's a really unusual step. It might become more common once chains figure out that they can do this. And that has people worried. It's one of the reasons that there's controversy about this, because we do advertise blockchains as having this thing called immutability, where once you have the money on chain, it can't be moved or taken away by anybody except you because you control the private keys. It's all very complicated, but it is notable. It's a landmark, and it especially is important for people who are concerned about on-chain governance and formalizing some of the processes for managing these chains. So, sorry, that was a ton. I don't know who wants to jump in and comment. It's very complicated, but who has thoughts? Save me.
That was a good table setter.
Zach.
I have thoughts. Yeah, the governance, DeFi governance is like, it's a small world after all. The level of sort of voter engagement and participation, I think to date has been rather low. And I think some of the controversy around this, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, was, large holders who, have a lot of skin in the game in terms of the long-term health of this protocol. Were those the voting blocks that ultimately were able to get this over the finish line?
That's a good question that I unfortunately don't know the answer to. I haven't dug into what intelligence we might have on the votes. I mean, that requires kind of connecting some dots, right? Because theoretically, the votes are anonymous based on wallet addresses. And so then you would have to go back and see who's who. I guess we could probably pretty easily figure out who whales are, but it's even then it's hard to say. But are you just kind of asking who's...
I had seen some chatter about that. I was just wondering if the reporting you'd done had supported that. But I mean, I think just zooming out, like the big picture here is that, these are protocols that end up having a lot of value attached to them in many cases, and deciding how to govern them is an open question and can be a thorny question over time. And this is like one of those really profound examples. like whether or not governance looks more activist in its approach to what gets done or more laissez-faire in terms of, we need to have this sort of hands-off ethos to what happens here is an open question that these governance proposals ultimately sort of end up answering in one way or the other. This one went one way, and I think we're going to see other examples that may go the other. But it's always interesting to see how these things play out when, especially when your capacity to vote is directly linked to the size of your bags. So it's interesting to watch these things unfold, and I think it's to be honest, it's sort of an undercovered corner of the DeFi landscape. This one happened to draw a bit of controversy, and I think you've done a good job unpacking it. So we'd like to see more of these pieces going forward, because lurking the halls of various protocol city halls is something that crypto newspapers should be doing a bit more often. But Jen, I'm going to toss it down to you. I think I saw your hand go up.
My hand didn't go up, but I will take it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it's okay. When I was reading the story, I also noted, David, that the vote was so close. And I just thought, what is this going to mean for the community moving forward? Which I think both you and Zach both expressed your same pondering. So I went to Twitter this morning and pulled a few sound bites from each camp. Laura Shin said, I think the governance worked in the sense that people felt that they had been cheated and punished them for it. Kind of crazy, but also a way of enacting justice. Unclear, since the entity says the funds were for multiple people. And then on the other side of the story, we have Atter.eth said, too short-sighted in my opinion, likely harder to recruit talent and assets now. So it will just be really interesting to see, where we go from here. I think this was a bold move, a first, really for the DeFi community, and it will be interesting to see where we go from here. And that is my kind of mild take on the story, Zach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, these things are really interesting. The one that I always go back to was the Dharma, which is a now defunct DeFi trading app, which was acquired by OpenSea not long ago. Dharma had proposed or was involved in a proposal where its users should be entitled to the Uniswap uni airdrop way back when, however many moons ago. And when there are large sums at stake and there's these different constituencies at stake who would rather have more tokens in the environment or would rather not, to preserve the token price of those who are already holding those assets, these become like really contentious, thorny, interesting, often contested conversations that we get to see unfold in real time in governance forums and often on twitter.com. So it's going to be wild. Like if DeFi and DAOs really reach the potential that a lot of the true believers out there think that they will, these governance conversations are going to become increasingly important and really just interesting to watch as different communities sort of, again, reckon with what the future of these projects should look like. But I'll toss it back down to David.
I just have one final thing to point out, which was in my conversations when I was reporting this story, somebody pointed out something really important, which is this is significant in that there was a governance vote for it, but it is important to keep in mind that ultimately there's nothing to stop a network from doing this without a governance vote through what's known as a hard fork at any time, whether or not they have any kind of governance system at all. So if you are, let's say there's 100 users of a network, 99 of them agree that one should have all their money taken away, they don't have to vote on it. They can just fork the chain, change the balance, and continue on. And that's generally very hard to do. It's why you have something like Ethereum Classic, which persisted after the DAO fork. But it is certainly always theoretically possible. So, I mean, if you're on a chain and you do something that makes everybody else so mad that they want to take your money away, that is still always theoretically possible. So it's something to keep in mind.
Good stuff. We are going to stop the show there. And there's definitely going to be more to talk about on DeFi governance in the future. Steve, can we get a Steve cameo?
I was trying to get him over here.
So
what they want.
But
everyone wants to see Steve.
He's at the window. He's looking outside. There's something interesting out there. I can't get him.
He's had
away.
enough of us.
Yeah.
That's good. He's pondering life's deep questions.
Tomorrow, though, I'll be back.
All right.
Maybe he'll show his face.
All right. Yeah, David will be back tomorrow. I think the rest of us will be back tomorrow. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Shout out to Control for that great Metaverse a minute thing. That was really fun.
Yes.
All right, we're going to wrap it there. That's the hash for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Check out CoinDesk TV for other great stuff to watch and CoinDesk.com for other great stuff to read. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys.